Step number 2, feedback. Now, guest feedback is something that sounds like it should be done after the event. We're kind of thinking about feedback forms, maybe post-event because we got kind of busy. I want you, my event ninjas, to be thinking about your feedback forms well before your event, because getting feedback on the day while people are in the environment and in amongst the vibe of your event is going to be the best result and give you the most accurate feedback and ideas moving forward with this event. So we are on page number 4 of your manual. So let's have a look at what we've got for you in this section. So in order to discover what we need to do, what we've done well, what we need to do better, we need to get feedback from our guests. But you can also be looking at getting feedback from your sponsors and maybe also your speakers, because this is going to give you great information, but maybe also some beautiful testimonials that you can be using in those sponsor documents, in your contra documents, or anything else that you're going to do to be promoting your event the next time you hold it. So how can you collect feedback from your event? You could do a feedback form, have a keypad session, an online feedback form after your event, send a physical feedback form in the post, verbal feedback, video feedback, testimonials, face-to-face meetings with a few of your clients or a few of your sponsors after the event, or maybe even a research group after the event with some of your key delegates. Now, there are some things that I want you to consider when you're creating feedback forms, and they are: how many questions are too many? We don't want our feedback forms to be endless and people just kind of get a little bit sick of filling it out, or they don't fill it out at all because it just seems too hard and everybody is time poor these days. When do we include a scale rating or comment questions? Can your participants be anonymous? Now, this is a great way to get some honest feedback by not asking them to put their name there, but they can if they want to. Would you like to capture testimonials? So maybe a question here is, would you like to leave a testimonial that we can use in future promotion? Or even a tick box on your feedback form that says, yes, I give permission for my comments to be used in conference testimonials or future event promotion. Is a simple, what did we do well question and what could we improve question going to give you the best results? We've started doing feedback forms with these 2 simple questions. What did we do well and what could we improve? And our response rate is amazing. They're open-ended questions, so it gives people the ability to really give us their true feedback without us framing or shaping the way that they answer questions in any way. And when they just see 2 simple questions on a feedback form, they're more inclined to fill it out for us, so we're actually getting higher response rates. So there's a bit of an idea that you could try incorporating for your next event. Now, when it comes to feedback and I guess satisfaction, there are 2 types of guest satisfaction that I like to see in an event. One is the hospitality. So your guests are going to be rating your event on how well they were received. Was it a friendly welcome? Was the food good? Was the food on time? Were the buses on time if you're transporting guests? And did they feel comfortable and welcome in the event environment that you've created? And then number 2 on their satisfaction list will be their satisfaction with the formal content. Were they happy? Did they have the opportunity to network if that's what you promised them? Or did they actually learn what you promised they would learn on the invitation? So if you hit the mark on those 2 areas of satisfaction for your guests, it means that you've created a really great event environment for them. So were they well received? Did they feel comfortable? And did they actually get what was promised? Did you deliver? Did the event deliver what was promised to them when they RSVP'd? Turning to page number 5 are some things to consider when you're collecting verbal or video feedback. Now, I love this form of feedback, even if it's just shot on your iPhone or you have a videographer doing some testimonials, because video is one of the best ways to be able to promote our event online afterwards and then also for future events as well. So if you're going to be doing verbal or video feedback, you definitely need some pre-prepared questions for the person who's going to be interviewing. Ask their permission to use the video content. I guess they're giving you that permission by actually being on the video camera in the first place. But have the participants state their name as well at the beginning of the video so you can use this in your future promotion. And verbal feedback can also be recorded on your phone. Just pop it onto airplane mode before you do that so you don't get any calls or texts that interrupt any great breakthroughs that they're coming up with during your pre-prepared questioning. Things to consider if you're meeting face-to-face and gaining feedback. Again, have those pre-prepared questions ready to go. Ask open-ended questions so you get honest feedback, and like I said before, you're not sort of framing them into any one way or any specific style of answering. And again, record the session so that you have a voice record or a video record of it instead of writing notes, because sometimes as we're writing notes, unless we're used to it or we're used to writing shorthand, we can kind of miss a few things and not get the full vibe of what people are saying. With your feedback forms, you can include things like a scale rating, and on page 5 I've given you a bit of an example. What I want you to do though is make sure you've got an even number of scale ratings on your page. So you'll see this as 1 to 4. I don't want you to have a 1 to 5 because a lot of people will just go down the middle of the page and do the middle rating if they're not really interested or they're just trying to get your feedback form done quickly. But by having an even number instead of an odd number of options, you're asking people to put your event either on the lower end or the higher end. They can't just go down the middle and give you the easy answer or the lazy answer. Page 6, you could also do some quick tick boxes, which is great when you see this on a feedback form. Maybe it's whether they were happy with the catering or the venue or something like that. Those quick answers that you don't necessarily need open-ended responses about. So things you want open-ended responses about are probably the content, the speakers. Did they think it was value for money? Any other comments that they'd be happy to use as testimonials? So there's a few things where you can go, yes, here's a few tick boxes, or here's a scale rating for location, ease of access, the catering, and then there'll be some questions where you want some open-ended responses as well. So what questions do you need to ask your participants, your guests, in order to understand if your objectives were met? Now, a lot of the time in our training, people ask me, Kim, do you have a template? Do you have a feedback form template? Now, I haven't supplied you one. I am super sorry, because I want you to think about this from the perspective of your event. I don't have a template because I want you to really ask yourself what data you need, what questions you need to be asking your guests or your sponsors or your speakers. What are those questions to ensure that you have met your objectives? What are the questions you need to be asking that are super specific to your event? Because if I gave you a template with just questions saying, how do you rate the venue? How did you rate the catering? How did you rate the speakers? It's not going to be creative enough. It's not going to give you the data that you need for the next year's event, for the next time you run an event. What I also want you to be thinking about here is, what data are you actually going to be using? Do you really need to ask people about the venue catering, for example? Is that really important? Is that going to shape the way that you're going to make changes for your event? Or do you really want to know about whether that location was perfect and then you can get some on-the-spot feedback about catering while you're at the event? What data do you really need and what are you going to use? For me, the data that you're going to use is going to be about the way that people were interacting. Did they think the speakers were amazing? Were they happy with value for money? Did they feel like you delivered what you promised? So tailor your questions around these points and the data that you're going to actually use, because there's no point having a feedback form with 20 questions on it and then you've got all this data and no one's really ever going to use it the next year or for future events. A few final tips before I finish off this video for you. If you're going to have a feedback form, my advice is to do it at the event because you're going to get the best response rate, and build time into your program for guests to complete the feedback form. So maybe your MC has a couple of minutes where they go, okay, we're going to do some feedback forms, and your event team run them out to the delegates. You have some background music and there's dedicated time for people to actually give you their feedback. A great thing that I've done is during this session, you actually say, once you've completed your feedback forms, we're going to pop them all into a prize barrel and have an amazing prize so that people have an incentive to give you their feedback form once they've completed it, and then they're in the prize draw for this fabulous prize. Now, this prize might cost you a little bit of money. Maybe you can get sponsored by one of your partners. It's going to give them an incentive to get that form filled out and give you valuable feedback at the event. If you're going to send your feedback form post-event, then definitely an online form is my preference because it's quick and it's easy. Remember to keep it short and simple so when people click it, they can see the whole form on one page and they feel like, okay, this won't take me that long to complete. Maybe if it's an online form, you could offer them an incentive or a free download or access to some great material from the conference once they've completed the feedback form. We always want to be giving people an incentive, but also a way of saying thank you. Thank you for giving us more of your time. Thank you for giving us your valuable feedback on our event and how we did. So there you have it. There's the feedback module. It's a bit of a big one, and I want you to be thinking about this, as I mentioned, well before your event, as to how you can capture the most relevant and the most targeted feedback you can. If you have any questions about this, or maybe you've got just a really cool idea on how you've gathered feedback at your event, pop it in the comments below for the Ninja community, and we'll catch you on the next video.